Hello and welcome to the Rippling Pages podcast. This is the podcast where we have a coffee with the world's most interesting writers to inspire your reading and your writing, and it's all crafted and created by me, Liam Bishop. How are we doing today? Delighted to have you here, and we're here for some bonus content today with Camille Bordas, who was talking to me about her short story collection, One Son Only, published by Serpent's Tail. Camille's stories have a wonderfully dry humour. She's got this brilliant way of writing empathetic narratives about flawed characters with deeply woven observations about stories, about how fiction works. Plaudits for Camille come from George Saunders, Zadie Smith and Percival Everett. She's a regular contributor to The New Yorker. She's written in French and English, and she's published The Material, How to Behave in a Crowd, and that was also published by Profile, and Serpent's Tail is an imprint of Profile. And what you're going to hear today is Camille talking a little bit more about her objects of influence. You're also going to hear a little bit of a snippet from my close read on my Patreon. So for all Patreon subscribers, they get a close read every month of one of my previous guests. So it's like a little personal podcast for those paying subscribers. So it's about 20 minutes. It's a close look at the way the writer who we've been speaking to and listening to, that I've been interviewing, does what they do, how they use language. So if you're interested in a bit more about how writing works, and this is for you. And you're also going to hear a little bit of extra content about the experience of Camille writing and reading in French and English, because Camille is bilingual and she's written books in French and she's written books in English. Different books too, so not translated works. So we get a little bit more insight into that experience. If you do enjoy the show, why not leave a review? And when you do that review, you can leave some comments for me to pick up with us. A question about the show that might feature an Ask the Host episode, or even if it's just you tell me what you like about the show. Tell me about the guests that you'd like to see on the show. Okay, shall we get into it? This is Camille Bordas talking about One Son Only. You did mention objects of influence, but I don't know if you've had a chance to do that, or you've got anything, or
Objects, like I was trying to think about it because like this collection, I've been working on it for like 10 years. Like it's 10 years of stories, I wrote it in like 8 different places, literally. Like I'm not a fetishist. I just like I moved here for 9 months and I have nothing. Like I mean the nicotine products are really important.
all right.
But yeah, I think like maybe 5 years ago I would have said my lighter just follows me everywhere. It's like a sort of table lighter, but it doesn't anymore because I don't smoke anymore. So yeah, I think like shy of the delete key, there's not an object that is
Well,
uh,
I mean, so on the Ripple pages for listeners who are regular listeners, sometimes we speak to the writer about objects of influence, and this is just my way of trying to understand a little bit more about the influence of writing. So you find it, it would have been a lighter,
yeah.
like a for a cigarette.
Yeah. I think
Do you
it
think
would have
lighter?
been a lighter. It's because like yeah, I used to smoke a lot at my desk, and when I wasn't smoking,
Right.
I was just playing with the lighter, obviously. But it's interesting because I was talking about the presentation on Egypt, and there's like this
Mm.
miniature lighter that happens and plays a role in the story. I don't have a miniature lighter, but I really try to buy one at some point, but it was like I don't know. But one thing that I will say, it doesn't follow me everywhere, but when I was a kid and I lived in Mexico for a couple years, when I was a kid, like I had a fascination for miniatures because like on Mexican markets, there were a lot of, they miniaturized everything, often skeletons or
Yeah.
coffins, like all types of food were miniaturized. And so I was really into that. And I still have them all. Like I have a huge collection at home in Chicago, not here, but yeah, like pairs of shoes, like tiny things. And so I don't know, there's something about like a dollhouse and miniaturized experience that I really like. And that kind of made its way to the story with the presentation on Egypt. But yeah, like that's a little passion of mine that hasn't subsided.
Small little objects.
Yes.
Ah,
Like from
wow.
daily life, like little pots, yeah, shoes, knives.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It makes me think about though. I don't. I could be off with this, but it makes me think about those birds that
Yeah.
ducks.
Yeah.
Tony looks after, and Eugene tries to look after, and Eugene sadly it doesn't work out for the
Yeah.
duck there, does it? But I don't know if it's about that kind of, because I could just see him picking them up and very gently trying
Yes.
to place them.
Yeah. And
Um,
yeah, and my husband has, I mean, we have a bird, but it's my husband's bird. Like they have a bond that I don't have with the bird. But like, there's something really interesting about the layout of this cage and all, like just to see the way people create their house. And so I think in the miniaturized version that I got to play and see like, so yeah, I think there's like how you make your living space. I like to see other people's living space. Mine not, but I'm not super attached to things. So.
Well, it does. It's either way. That's great. We've not had that, but
Mhm.
we've certainly had small objects, but we've not had a kind of coterie of small objects. Compelling, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think of the kind of things about, and I've been to Mexico and I've seen the tiny little whether it's in the market. So I went to a house in Valladolid, and there was a collection of all this folk art, and there
Mhm.
was just all these everywhere, absolutely everywhere,
Yeah.
tiny skeletons,
Yeah.
and which relates to the beliefs about death in Mexican culture, and
Yeah.
but there is something about very small objects
Yeah.
that we find, and so you've got these all at home,
I
which you
got
don't
these
have at the
all at
moment.
home.
So you're working remote. Where
Yeah,
are you
I'm
working
working
remote?
away, but in particular, it's like a tiny pair of leather shoes, and it's the level of detail in a tiny like piece of leather. Like, yeah, I can send you a photo
Interesting.
if you want to put
Well,
it
I'd love
on.
to see it out of curiosity, but
But yeah, it's just like yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, it's something I like.
well, well. Thanks for that. That was very interesting. That was very interesting. So thanks for that, Camille. Well, it's I think, but I'm very curious. What is next? Where are you going next? What can we expect to see from you?
Well, hopefully I will finish this novel one day. I've been working on it for so long. Like I've been
Yeah.
working on it for like 12 years and I just put it off, write something else, put it off. Yeah, it's just like, but now I think now is the time for me to finish it. So yeah, it's a very different novel. Like that's the one that I'm trying to plot out a little bit because there's a lot of um there's one science fictional element, but it's not hard sci-fi, but there's like one thing that kind of sets it off. So yeah, I think it's going to be that. And I would like to write some stories again. Like I said, like a bit different than this collection. I have like a few in the works. I always have like a lot of things started and in progress. So that's good. It's good to have a lot of things that you can go to when one project you're tired of a project.
Interesting.
But I think yeah, the goal is to finish that novel
Brilliant.
first.
Well, that sounds very exciting. And yeah, you
Yeah.
can see Camille appearing in the New York regularly, and well, it all sounds very exciting, and we can't wait to see where that goes. As you'd expect, there are lots of deeper psychoanalytic reasons that Freud writes about the uncanny. So we're not going to go into that. But there's a quote in that I thought of when I was putting this together, when I read Camille's stories, and it's, "Children have no fear of their dolls coming to life. They may even desire it." And I quite like this quote because it represents the idea that we have as children. These wishes for some things to come to life. We have an imaginative power that we realise that we have when we play with toys and dolls. And we don't necessarily abandon that as we get older, do we? We stop playing with toys. Not all the time, not uniquely, but generally probably people do stop playing with toys and dolls. But we still have this imagination. We still apply an imaginative power to things in our life. And it does come down to this. For Freud, it comes down to this anxiety and in that story, the Sandman, over what is real, what is not. And one of which is the way that we do express our imagination is, of course, which is why we're here on the Rippling Pages, is writing. And it's very closely, it's the power of our imagination. In Hoffman's story, what we're famous to see is a person who is amorous for an automaton. And the breakdown of the character is because he's unable to distinguish between what is real and what is not. But that doesn't happen here in any case. But what I think it represents is there's this, as much as we have a wish to see things come to life, there is an anxiety perhaps about the power of that imagination. And what we see within Camille's story is actually, in all of these ideas about animation, it relates to a bit of an anxiety about what we wish, what we bring to life, and what can come to life. When I get compelled by a writer who
Yeah.
has been translated from French or either writes in French, I do try it as part of my education. I would do a very, very slow read of French. So it's definitely something I'm interested in doing. But I think it's that dynamic then of the kind of cultural ideas around. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that French, and you called it the king of the form, which perhaps
Hmm.
relates to some problems with gendered ideas of writing and
Yeah.
language. But was it? I don't want to say the liberating, but was it a process that felt freeing in some form?
The material was written in English as well. It's my
Right.
first books in French. They have not appeared in English. They are just in French and maybe like Serbian, I think. like something.
Okay.
But yeah, like my first two books, they only exist in French. So unless you read French, you would not have heard of them. But yeah, the How to Behave in a Crowd was my first book in English, and The Material, my second novel. Writing short stories in combination with writing in a different language than my mother tongue, like this was like the perfect storm of, yeah, suddenly it's exciting again. Not that I was tired of writing in French, but then I kind of, I mean, I'm going to use this word again, but I really like to experiment. I don't want to keep
Mm.
writing the same book. And even if this collection is very coherent, I feel like my next collection, if I keep writing stories, which I hope I will, would be a lot different.
Mm.
Um, I, I don't like to repeat myself. And so to like try to solve narrative problems in a short form and a foreign language, like that was just so fun to me. And
Mm.
it still
Wow.
is. And so, yeah, I mean, I love the English language, but obviously, uh, I've made a lot of progress in it in the last 15 years since I moved here. So it's really exciting because I can see my English getting better. And so it's very, I don't know, maybe I'm a child and I like to track my progress and see that I'm getting better.
I mean,
Whereas, yeah.
that is an absolute understatement that you've your English has got better. Goodness me, you've published
Yeah.
novels and stories, which is, I mean, this is such a cultural problem we have in the UK, at least, promoted to think, let alone read in other languages, speak in other
Mhm.
languages beyond reading. So, the idea of the childish creativity, I think that
Mhm.
is a thing that I've heard quite a lot, and
Yeah.
that form and that experimentation.